U.S. threats to North Korea linked to bankruptcy negotiations and global reboot. World events have been struck in a holding pattern this summer, but a major paradigm shift is possible this fall if we make it happen. The holding pattern is as follows. The United States of America Corporation, which defaulted on its debt payments on the 1st of May this year, has been threatening war against North Korea as a negotiating tactic with its creditors. It means creditor China has been calling the corporation's bluff by promising to protect North Korea in the event it is unilaterally attacked. At the same time, the Chinese have been staging limited military actions on their border with India, reminding the Americans they have the technical ability to take over that 1.3 billion person country within a matter of months if it came to war. The Chinese have also said they will not protect North Korea in the event they strike the first blow. At the same time, the Russians and the Pentagon have informed the Israelis they will be attacked if they try to launch a nuclear missile from one of their submarines and make it look like North Korea did it. Pentagon and Russian FSB sources say this has effectively checkmated any Khazarian mafia attempts to start World War III, because any attempt to do so will affect only them. They are not longer able to fool us into starting a war. In any case, the US military has run countless scenarios involving an all-out war with China, and the result is always the same. 90% of humanity dies and the northern hemisphere becomes uninhabitable. The Chinese are fully aware of this. That means all this war talk is just table thumping. The situation thus appears to be a stalemate. However, it is not a stalemate. The Khazarian faction of the Trump regime, realizing the war talk is going nowhere, is now considering cutting off Chinese exports to the US. This is the old, if we do not buy, they die, talk heard in the US intelligence agency circles. However, from the Chinese point of view, losing a customer who has been paying with his credit card for the past 40 years and is unable to pay his credit card bill would actually be a plus. Nobody benefits from a deadbeat, especially a criminal deadbeat like the US, that has been at war for 220 years for its 241-year existence. If the Americans do decide anyway to go ahead anywhere and use tariffs and trade barriers to cut off Chinese imports and end the Chinese trade surplus with the US, there will be many third-order consequences, most of them very bad for the US. Basically speaking, the US would suffer a sharp drop in living standards and would become a pariah in global trade if it tried to do such a thing. The US regime has lost a lot of trust and allies as a result of its antisocial behavior around the world. An indication of this is the fact that the Italian junk bonds now have a higher price than the US treasuries. Now, financial authorities in the UK have indirectly imposed the US corporate government tactic of buying their own debt, making it look like foreigners did it, to make it appear all is well in the US financial markets. They did this indirectly with an admission by the Financial Times that 103 years ago, when almost nobody bought English bonds of World War I, it lied to the public by reporting the bond issue was oversubscribed. When I was a corporate media financial journalist, my bosses often told me to support this sort of lie in order to boost market psychology. In other words, we were told to be cheerleaders, not objective news reporters. Now more and more corporate media people in the US are risking their careers to impose their bosses' agenda. For example, Brian William of NBC admitted on a prime-time broadcast that our job is to scare people to death over North Korea. The aim of this fear-mongering was to push investors to go to the US bonds as a safe haven, but it is not working. Instead, the plan remains to remove all final vestiges of Khazarian mob rule in the US. Trump is ready for all-out war on Washington, D.C. swamp after firing liquor and Paul Ryan ally Rand's pure bust. Pentagon sources say. There are also many other signs the swamp is being drained of the sun-worshipping Khazarian, the sources say. Now that the top Khazarian henchmen like the Clintons and John McCain have been removed, lower-level functionaries are being fired. For one thing, Israeli War UN Ambassador Nikki Haley's 2 top aides were fired, and she may be next, the sources note. For another, Iron Hawk and General David Petraeus, crony Derek Harvey, was fired from the National Security Council as Marine General John Kelly becomes the White House Chief of Staff, the Pentagon sources note. Furthermore, Mossad's Ezra Cohen-Watnick, the NSC Intel Director, was fired after Kelly took over for being a national security risk and opposing the Iran deal, the sources note. Any other staffers traveling to Israel or having links to that large nation will also be fired, they say. Ezra and his ilk were previously unfireable because of the Trump son-in-law Jared Kushner, the sources say. However, Kushner himself may get his security clearance caned by Kelly. They add, Kushner is being sent on white goose chase in the Middle East to showcase his incompetence as peacemaker, the sources note. To replace the Khazarian control, the Pentagon, the Russians, and the Chinese have formed a Big Three alliance. Sources in all three camps agree. This is being seen in Venezuela, which has become a de facto Russian protectorate after the Russians were given a big stake in the nation's oil industry. This could not have happened without a nod from the U.S. military. In other words, this means Khazarian plans to start a war with Venezuela, as well as their plans to start a war with North Korea, have been stopped. The Big Three are also pushing for peace in the Korean Peninsula so that a North-South Korean road link can be set up, and the over $10 trillion worth of minerals in North Korea can be put to use, the sources say. There's also heavy pressures to end the fighting in Afghanistan, so that nation's mineral wealth can also be put to work for bettering people's life. There are also high-level negotiations going on now between Canada and North Canadian government sources say. The North Koreans are conveying to the Canadians an Asian secret society offer to finance a leveraged buyout of the U.S. corrupt government, sources close to negotiations say. U.S. military and intelligence community white hats support the idea of a unified North America with a competent democratic government in charge. On a final note, many groups are calling for a mass meditation during the solar eclipse on the August 21st, since the current hybrid war going on is really about who controls the psychological process of deciding what humanity does in the future. A positive group thinks sessions might actually help. One does not have to be Hindu or Buddhist in order to practice meditation. People can instead take time to envision what sort of planet we would like to live in and what they can personally contribute towards making that happen. Till now, our planet has been run by fear and warmongers. They have been manipulating us by saying we must fear and fight. The infidels, the Muslim, the communist, Al-Qaeda, the Russians, ISIS, the Chinese, the North Koreans, and etc. We are now ready to shift instead to a positive outlook based on thinking, how can we help each other turn this planet into a paradise for all? This autumn, as the September 30th fiscal deadline for the U.S. corrupt government approaches, we can make it happen. It is time to drain the D.C. swamp and then go after their Peter Freemason Black Sun worshipping overlords. Please rest well for the last week of summer and prepare for a busy autumn. Let us finish what we have started.